Best of the best in Oakland, and today it's all about the outfield.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Man, I am getting all excited because it's almost Christmas time, and I hope you are getting ready to have a nice holiday yourself. Whatever you're doing, be safe if you're driving, and welcome to another edition of Locked On A's. My name's Wayne Coy, the guy in the other square. I feel like we're on Hollywood Squares here. I'll take Ian Coy to block. That's Ian right there, who is freezing his butt off. And we should probably explain this. Ian is my son, eldest. I got 6 kids now, and Ian's the senior member there. And you are in Iowa.
In the frozen tundra.
Yeah. But what's crazy is you're in Iowa in your car because your Wi-Fi at home is all wonky.
Yeah, we're going to get that taken care of in short order. But tried to go with the old T-Mobile home internet. Can't recommend it.
Well, I hope they're not a sponsor. Okay. I want to thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen every day, because I know you do. Thank you for that. And your comments are awesome. Love the give and take. So it's good to have the dialogue going back and forth, and we totally appreciate that. Subscribing is a wonderful thing. Thank you for doing that. And, of course, the big thumbs up whenever you can do that helps us grow the channel. So thanks for all of that. Remember, we're available everywhere. You can get a podcast, and we're your team every day. That's what makes Locked On A's different. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Don't forget, FanDuel, in the heat of the football season, giving you an awesome opportunity to get involved. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, and then when you get there, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. And what are we talking about? Well, it's Christmas time, and we're A's fans, and we got to make our lists and then check them twice and find out who's Bo Bice. I don't know. So I got something on my list, but Ian, I want you to go first. What's on your Oakland A's fan Christmas list this year?
I'm going to try to keep it realistic and just give us a season of progress. That's what I want. I want a season where we're not losing 100 games, that I can consistently watch competitive baseball. That's all I want for Christmas.
Not asking too much. And the reality of you getting that this year?
I think it's probably slim to none.
Well, it depends on whether you've been naughty or nice.
Well, we're screwed.
Yep. If you think you're not getting what you asked for, I know for a fact I'm not getting what I asked for. Number one on my list as an Oakland A's fan for Christmas this year, I said, please, let us have a new owner. Not going to hold my breath. So then my second thing was I said, please let us have Shohei. And it turns out, Ian, I got an early Christmas present. We got Shohei.
Wow.
I know. You didn't know that, did you?
I did not. How did that happen?
Well, because we drafted him from Kurobe, Japan. His name is Shohei Tomioka, and he is a pitcher. Most people that know the A's minor league system probably know his name. Been around for a couple of years. He's 27. Split time last year between Lansing and Las Vegas, or Midland and Las Vegas. I know he's a AA, so that'd be Midland, right? Anyway, yep. He did great, and then he came up to AAA, not so much. So we'll see how he does this year, because I think maybe this could be the year that was for our Shohei. So if you know a Dodger fan, you know, you can completely look him in the eye and say, you're not the only one with Shohei, okay? Because Wayne got his Christmas present early. Anyway, that's our A's fan Christmas list. Moving on from that, though, this is kind of cool. We went through everybody who's ever played for the Oakland A's, and we ranked them the top 3 by position. And there might be some surprises on there when you hear a name maybe that you haven't heard in a while, and you're like, oh, I totally forgot about him. Okay? That's coming up in just a bit. But first, Major League Baseball did it again. The competition committee has decided to make some rule changes. So this sport that basically was the same for, with minor changes for a couple hundred years, now for the second year in a row, we're doing stuff. So if you didn't already hate Rob Manfred, try these on for size. With men on base, pitchers will now have not 20 seconds, 18 seconds to make the pitch. And they were already prepared for people like us to say, that's BS. So, you're taking all the fun out of the game. You're taking the drama out of the game. They say, hold on. Last year, it was just barely over 7 seconds with men on base that the pitches were, on average, released from the pitcher's hand. So taking 2 seconds off of that means they'll still have 5 seconds to spare. That's their logic. What do you think about that, Ian?
I think they're just bored. That's the only thing I could think of. Like, they already shortened the game by a ton. It takes away from the fan experience at the ballpark, most definitely. Not necessarily at home. Takes away ad revenue for these guys during commercial breaks. I mean, I don't understand it. I literally just think they're bored.
Yeah, so that's not the only rule change, right? So they did that, and then they decided to forget about the pitcher for a second. There's always been a little controversy about the runner's lane. And sort of at the umpire's discretion, if they felt like the runner went out of the runner's lane, he could be called out, right?
Right.
And it's been like that forever. Well, now they've widened the lane, and I want to make sure I have it exactly the way it's supposed to be here. The lane widening. I feel like there was construction, like living here in Vegas. Yeah, we've widened the lane for the runners. Yeah, so 18 and 24 inches is now going to be the distance between the foul line and the infield grass. It used to be that it wasn't the infield grass. It was basically between the foul line and the 3-foot line. And now they've extended that all the way to the grass. And they're going to take a couple of these parks that are going to have a hard time making that change. And they're going to grandfather it in for a year or two until they can figure it out. So there may be an advantage or a disadvantage for some of those teams. But, they made the bases bigger. They're giving a wider lane. Obviously, what they're trying to do is create more offense if they can. And, let's ruin all the pitchers' arms by having them throw the ball in 16 seconds or whatever it is. With nobody on, it's 15 seconds already. They didn't change that. But we'll have to wait and see.
Wait till next year.
Yeah. Mound visits, those have also been reduced from 5 to 4 per game. Teams apparently average only 2.3. So they, again, are thinking, well, why don't we make it a little tighter just in case? Maybe they'll do it one less time. And then the craziest of them all, during a pitching change, okay, you've made a change. You brought in a new pitcher. He hasn't thrown a pitch. He's warming up. The other manager looks to see who you brought in as a pitcher and says, oh, you know what? We're going to call that batter back and we're going to pinch hit with this guy instead. Okay. Oftentimes what you've seen in that instance is, well, then the team on the field says, oh, really? Well, guess what? He's not the pitcher anymore. We're going to bring this guy in. Right. Well, now with this rule change, they have to face at least one batter if they're warming up on the mound, on the field, not in the bullpen, on the field, in between innings or whatever, getting ready for the next inning. And so they gotta face one batter, which again, I would think would be a disadvantage for the pitcher. More offense. We need more offense.
Yeah, everything has been geared toward more and more and more offense. And I just noticed like all of the rule changes that you just brought up, you just said that they're delivering pitches with 8 seconds or whatever to spare on average. So taking 2 seconds off of that effectively does nothing. They're widening the lane, which is already kind of an umpire's discretion thing. So that shouldn't really affect much. Bringing a pitcher out and warming him up on the field and then swapping him out. You said that happened like 7 or 8 times. Seems like all of this stuff isn't actually going to affect anything.
Right. So it goes back to what you said. You think they're just bored, right? Got nothing else to do. Was that it? I thought, why do I think there was one? Oh, this is important. The feedback from the players union was no bueno. Tony Clark, you can get these quotes right here. He said the player representatives in this case voted against this proposal by the competition committee and said, as they made clear in the competition committee, players strongly feel that following last season's profound changes to the fundamental rules of the game, because there were a bunch, immediate additional changes are unnecessary, offer no meaningful benefit to a fan, to a player, or to the competition on the field. This season should be used to gather additional data and fully examine the health, safety, and injury impact of reduced recovery time. That's where our focus will be. So, end quote. Goes without saying, what he just said is, get ready for another strike. Because that's what's going to happen, is the players are going to go, we didn't like these rule changes, we didn't want them in the first place, and now we're going to argue about that, and it's going to be a reason, like always happens between the players and the owners. So this is all about the owners. This had nothing to do with the players.
What, do they just want everybody out of the stadium quicker? I mean, what's the advantage? Less concessions sold. There's less advertising revenue.
Well, it's like I said 2 days ago, the idea of, okay, fine, you're speeding up the game, but you're not speeding up the line that I have to stand in to get a hot dog and a beer. And now 3 innings later, I'm getting back to my seat. I missed, a third of the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not right.
I didn't like
nothing cool about that.
That's why I didn't like the pitch clock to begin with. I'm somebody that likes to go actually watch baseball games, and it's taken away their experience.
I mean, I can just speak to this. I mean, you and I have had some amazing conversations at a baseball game. Basically, when there's, it's working at its own leisurely pace like it always used to. I don't know. I mean, I've always said, too, that, the people that want it to be wham, bam, slam, it's not football. It's not basketball. It's not hockey. It's a different kind of sport. It's chess instead of checkers, right?
Sure.
Or Space Invaders, or give me Mortal Kombat. It's not it. It's, well, okay, maybe that's the next rule change. You get a weapon after you drop your bat. They hand you a weapon, and you can take that with you, and bludgeon the first baseman if you want to. I don't know. All right, let's talk about football for a change, okay? I know it's a baseball podcast, but it's football season. When baseball rolls around, you'll be able to do whatever you want with FanDuel there. But right now, it's all about football, and FanDuel wants you to be part of that. So quickly download the app. It's very easy to do. Once you've got it, of course, you can start using it. And don't forget a $5 money line bet. If you win and you're a new customer, you get $150 in bonus bets. Do what you want. Those player props, those are wacky. You can play those. You can do the spreads. You can do the overs. You can do the unders. Whatever you're into, it's right there for you at FanDuel in the thick of the football season. Get up there and take advantage of it. Remember, you go online to FanDuel.com/lockedon, and the deal is waiting for you when you get there. Have some fun with FanDuel. They are an official partner of the National Football League. Okay, top 3 A's of all time in the outfield. We've already covered the entire infield and the designated hitter. Now we're going to that beautiful Coliseum grass, and we're going to start with left field. Should I just say his name, or no? Let's do all 3. I think we have to. Yeah. Okay. So there was a guy who came from Cuba, who quickly became a fan favorite, who then was dealt away because the A's felt like they needed some more pitching to be able to get further into the playoffs and win. So Yoenis Cespedes was dealt to the Boston Red Sox for John Lester. A lot of people now, hindsight's 2020, but there were a lot of people upset then. Most of them are still upset now because they really wanted number 52 to stay where he was. I mean, he was without a doubt the star of the team at that point. So I've got him at third. Is there a case to make for him being either not on the list or higher up, Ian? What do you think?
I don't think so. He wasn't there long enough for him to move up any higher than that. 3.5 seasons, or 3 in all but 2 months of the 4th season. But I mean, that guy, when he first came up, La Potencia, he was the guy, man. I went out and rushed out and bought I think you actually rushed out and bought me a Cespedes jersey.
That was on your A's fan Christmas list at that time, of course.
Yes, it was, man. That was my favorite player on the team. What a weird guy, man. Like, just like he's like a rancher in the off season.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, it's weird seeing him in like a cowboy hat and stuff.
Oh, man. And he got, the thing that I always go back to is like the comparisons to Bo Jackson, right? Like, he looked like Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
And he played, not in steal bases like him, but really kind of looked like him in a uniform. And then when he had that crazy throw where he misplayed it at first, and then gunned out, I think somebody from the Angels,
Wow.
I think, at home plate, and
Yep.
you side by side, like frame by frame, put that next to the Bo Jackson throw, and which is widely regarded as maybe the best throw ever from left field. It's the same throw.
Yeah. Yeah. I just remember going, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe that. At first I thought it was, he was going to basically mangle the play. He did.
Yeah.
And that's, that's why I forget. I'm like you. I can't remember the base runner, but took an extra base and then got a little greedier. And that's when Yo said no.
There's no reason why you wouldn't have taken another base. I mean, where the guy was when he fielded the ball,
Right.
He's rounding third. I mean, I've never seen a throw like that other than by Bo Jackson from left field in my life. So,
right. So Yo and Bo with the classic throws.
That's to say nothing about like his bat. I mean, that home run derby that year, wow, just nuts. And then they turned around and traded him. Just hurt. It hurts.
Well, my wife Nancy, she's always contended that trade, as much as the A's really did need more pitching, they went out and got Smarja, and who's the other guy they got from the Cubs? They got two. Yes, Jason Hamill. And, and then they thought, okay, this is really going to do it. We're going to get John Lester, who did pitch well, so it's no knock on John Lester, but Nancy's point is you ruined the chemistry of this team by getting rid of its kind of biggest star and right in the thick of a pennant race, So hindsight, again, 2020, but you look back and you go, was that the right thing to do? And I think most people think not so much. Well, we spent a lot of time on number 3. Let's talk about number 2, who I think, well, I don't think I know, for a long time was probably the most underrated player in baseball until it became a thing to talk about how underrated he was. So then he became like the most overrated, underrated player of all time. And that would be Joe Rudi, number 26, left fielder for the entire run. All of those Oakland A's World Series championships, Joe was out there in left field. He was trained as an outfielder by another Joe DiMaggio, who was a coach for the A's in 1968 and 69. And it was that time with DiMaggio that Joe Rudi would tell you now turned him around as a defensive outfielder. And, of course, he made that play in the 1972 World Series where he basically became Spider-Man. Dennis Menke fly ball up against the wall, and Rudi just timed it perfectly and caught that thing right up against the wall in Cincinnati. And that's a classic video to watch. It's also a great still picture seeing, Joe up there up against the wall like he's Peter Parker or something.
Yeah, that's the one that comes to mind for me, the still picture. I almost can't see the video clip at this point because the still picture is so iconic.
Yeah. Well, Joe Rudi, a classic Oakland A in every way, shape, and form. And, he came back at the end of his career and finished in Oakland. So that was pretty cool, too. Number 1, come on. We're talking about left field. Probably the single greatest baseball player I've ever witnessed. And I saw Willie Mays play.
Wow.
And I would say Willie is a close second to this guy.
Wow.
And that would be Hall of Famer Rickey Henderson. And Ian, how can you argue that he is He might be the greatest Oakland A period of all time, but he's certainly the greatest left fielder to ever play for the A's.
100%. Yeah. There's never going to be another Rickey. I mean, you can't duplicate him. You couldn't create that dude in a lab.
You couldn't. And homegrown from Oakland. I mean, I'm just thankful that his mom told him at a certain age, you know what, you're not going to play football. And the reason you're not going to play football is I don't want you to get hurt. You play baseball instead. Good choice, Mom.
And 23, 24, however many seasons it was later.
Yeah.
Mom, right.
I think Rickey would play right now if you gave him the opportunity. I think he would do it in a heartbeat. Okay, let's move over to the middle, center field. They say, you win games up the middle. So if your second base shortstop situation is good, and you got a great catcher that can, throw runners out and extend that line all the way to center field, there's your quarterback in the outfield. He's the one usually making the calls. He has the ability to come over and say, no, I'm taking it. Or, he's the take charge person in the outfield usually. So the A's have had some great ones. And let's start with the man with the fro, Coco Crisp, who played for the A's for a long time. I forgot how many years he was with the A's. Yes.
8 seasons, yeah.
Yeah. And he played with was he with the Indians before? I think he was, right?
Yeah, it was with Kansas City as well.
Oh, yeah, the Royals, right. I think you're right.
Yep.
Again, we're doing this show commando. We don't have a ton of statistics in front of us. We're just working out of the old noggin. So if every now and again we go, I don't remember, it's because we don't have it written down in front of us like we usually do. All right. Coco, kind of a late generation center fielder. Let's go back, though, about 20 years before that. And a guy who we talked about was a free agency acquisition. We mentioned that in yesterday's podcast. Played with the Seattle Mariners. And then I think the A's signed him having played with the Boston Red Sox, right? Where he played with the Red Sox in the playoffs. And then he went to the Giants. He had one season with the Giants. And it was from the Giants where he became a free agent again. And this time he crossed the bay to wear the green and gold. And from the time Dave Henderson went into center field for the A's in 1987, it was like he just lit the match that started the whole thing. 87, 88, 89, 90. He was a center fielder through that whole run. And just a rock. And then very involved with the A's fans, with the fantasy camps and all of that. Again, a guy who, like Joe Rudy to me, or Rickey Henderson, personifies what it is to be an Oakland A. I know you were a big Hendu fan.
I like both of the Hendersons, man. That's what my A's when I grew up. Like, those are the guys I grew up watching when I first fell in love with baseball. And just million megawatt smile from that guy too. Like, is a good teammate, awesome center fielder. And you're right, just kind of set the table for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And sadly died at a very young age. He was only 57. He'd had a kidney transplant, and then like 2 months later, he had a heart attack and passed away. We sure miss Hendu. Number one, though, now here's one of those names that you just don't hear. You hear Rickey Henderson. You hear Catfish Hunter. You hear Reggie Jackson. You don't hear Dwayne Murphy's name brought up too much. But anybody who ever watched him play center field would tell you, end of story. Quite possibly, again, maybe with the exception being Willie Mays, the greatest center fielder I've ever seen play. And certainly the shallowest center field I've ever seen anybody play. I mean, he was practically in the infield and just basically dared you to hit the ball over his head, and nobody did.
Trusting his reads.
Yeah, exactly. So for that reason, we put him at number one. That would be Dwayne Murphy, who was a member of those teams in the late 70s. Now, he was also a member of that team in 1979 that went 54 and 108. So there might be a little bit of a parallel there in terms of bad team and a guy who could play some great defense. And then so I don't know if there's anything to talk about. There's some other people maybe that you could bring into the equation, like Rick Monday. Who am I missing? Well, I mean, right now you got a couple of kids who platooning out there, Lawrence Butler and Esty Ruiz, but I think their time will come at some point. In the meantime, pretty tough to beat Dwayne Murphy, I think. I mean, that outfield of Henderson, Murphy, and Tony Armisen Wright was just outstanding and was really kind of the reason why Billy Ball worked, because of those three guys.
Right.
And their pitching, of course. Okay, so we head on over to right field. And in right field, you got maybe our biggest controversy here. Because you contend that the guy at number 3, I've got him at 3. You say that maybe he didn't play for the A's long enough and he was injured quite a bit, right?
Yeah, and then there's even another guy that I was just thinking of, that same situation, didn't maybe play there long enough, but for the time he did play there, it's kind of equal stats-wise.
Who would that be?
It would be Brandon Moss.
Wow, there's a name.
Brandon
Moss was the boss for a couple of seasons for sure.
3 seasons and every bit as good statistically as the guy at number 3 over those 3 seasons, without having half a year with an injury that you will get to.
Right. So if the two of them are equal, Brandon Moss and Jermaine Dye, why would you give the advantage to Moss over Dye? And we're not even bringing up Josh Reddick or Stephen Piscotty or anybody that's ever played right field for the A's. Ruben Sierra.
Yeah. I'll reserve comment on that fellow.
We told the story here. Don't worry. Everybody knows. Yeah. Anybody that's a regular has heard the Ruben Sierra rude to young Ian story. So continue.
Yeah. Don't cross Papa Bear, man. It's not smart.
I wasn't okay with that.
Moss, really, like I said, statistically, they're very, very comparable. Dye and Moss. I think maybe it was just just the feeling that you got watching them, like the clutch at bats, like the heart attack, or not even heart attack. Well, I guess you'd probably call it heart attack A's, where we would go, we'd be losing by a couple of runs, and it would just, like, he was like the rally maker, man. That's what I remember most about him, is just coming up with a big hit at the right time, and just the adrenaline hit. I mean, Coco before him in the lineup, he another guy like that. It was just like energy. Like they were never out of a game, and that's kind of what just kind of popped him into my brain when we were talking about the top 3, because also threw out Josh Reddick, but really only had one great season offensively, mainly a defensive guy. But you talked about Joe Rudy being Spider-Man. That's the guy that went out there in the Spider-Man costume. So
it's true. I mean, as far as personality goes, I've always said between Josh Reddick and Nick Swisher, we had 2 of the most colorful players of the modern era play for the A's. I mean, they were just fantastic, in that regard.
That's
the walk-up music alone, you're walking up to Careless Whisper by Wham. Give me a break.
Can't beat it. Best walk-up.
Can't beat it
all time.
Yeah. And who can forget after the 2012 run and the playoff win there, those guys in the clubhouse with the robes on and the cigars and, yeah. Which now is funny because I see the Raiders smoking cigars in the locker room and I'm like, hey, Josh Reddick started that. Right. Okay. But I'm giving the nod to Jermaine because I think that the time he missed certainly it was horrible. The break of his leg, was from a foul ball that he fouled off of his shin. It just happened to hit the bone in the right spot. And that was rotten. But I thought defensively, he was a stud. Offensively, you talk about, driving in that key run at the key time. I always thought Jermaine was the RBI guy on that team. And then finally, the pièce de résistance, which is French for the real big reason, is he's from Oakland. So if I got Rickey and left from Oakland, I want Jermaine and right from Oakland. I want the bookends to be from the town.
That's fair.
Plus, like you said at the outset, Ian, we've already put his picture on the graphic, so
yeah.
Anyway, but we're talking about, you're right. I mean, honorable mention, of course. You didn't even bring up Jack Cust, so that's cool. All right. So that's Jermaine Dye, controversy being what it is. Number 2, Jose Canseco. I mean, you talk about somebody who took baseball by storm. You know, obviously the very first guy to ever go 40-40. And, you know, he had some off the field issues, but
What?
the Bash Brothers, come on.
He dated Madonna? Like a lot of people dated Madonna.
Yes, exactly. I think he even said that. Like a lot of people did. I'll never forget, I was on the field, same day as the Ricky Henderson story that I told the other day. And I was interviewing in the A's dugout, which was empty. It was before the game. Nobody in there except me and Jose Canseco. Okay? And I brought some copy that I wanted Jose to read for our radio station. And he said, sure. So these were IDs. Hi, this is Jose Canseco. You're listening to my station for extra base hits, whatever it was he said. And I've got it all on tape. It was great. What was even better was all the veteran sports writers and broadcasters who Jose was publicly not speaking to because he felt like they'd written some really crappy stuff about him. So he wasn't talking to the press. But because I wasn't like regular sports press, I was like a music guy who had a press pass, who asked him to, you know, to do a recording for me, and he was more than happy to do it. But watching the faces of those veteran sports writers, you know, was just amazing. And then when it all gets done, and again, this is on that tape, same tape where Ricky had to, you know, cut the interview short.
Right.
He left, Jose left, went back into the clubhouse, and then I, you know, went to go put my tape recorder away, and I immediately got pounced on by these writers. And they were all like, how come he's talking to you? Who are you? How come he won't talk to the press? What's, you know, it was like a big deal that Jose was not talking to the media, but he talked to your dad. So that's cool.
You could have got a job, I think, out of that if you wanted to, man. Like,
Probably could have.
that's, hey, I got the mojo, man. I can get the big, you know, I can get the guys to talk to me. I think you could have parlayed that into something.
Yeah, well, I didn't. So anyway, that was the story of what happened in Minnesota with Jose. Got him at number 2 because there's no way he can be number 1 when you've got number 9, MVP 1973, World Series hero in 1973 and 74. You talk about throws. Go back and watch that throw that he made to Dick Green, the relay then that threw Bill Buckner out at third base, trying to get a little greedy. Reggie, a lot of people forget this, was very, I guess I should say his name, right? Unless you're Jeff, our friend Jeff, who doesn't say his name. Anyway, Reggie Jackson, of course, Hall of Famer, Mr. October, all of that. Super duper star. He was the first one to sort of be referred to in that way. In fact, Sports Illustrated cover said super duper star because Reggie, great documentary, by the way, on Amazon called Reggie, if you get a chance to watch it. And yeah, all those things happen in New York later. But don't forget, he started his career with the A's and he ended his career with the A's. Started out being the right fielder in Oakland and ended up being a DH in Oakland. And you combine his time with the A's, it's twice as long as him playing for the Angels or the Yankees. And of course, he only played one season for the Orioles. So really, the end of it all, Reggie, and I think I've seen this online, people say, no, I always think of him as an A, you know? And so he's, I mean, come on. It's like you're talking about the Yankees. You mentioned Babe Ruth. I think he's playing right field. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Reggie gets right. And I'm sorry, Jose, to break that to you, or Jermaine Dye, but there's only one guy we could put at number 1 in this particular category, and that's him. So to recap, Cespedes, Rudy, and Ricky in left. Center fielders, Coco Crisp, Hendu, and at number 1, Dwayne Murphy. What a great defensive center fielder he was. Jermaine Dye, Jose Canseco, and Reggie Jackson in right. Wow. That's some great players right there. So we're going to get into pitching, and we'll do that in our next episode. We'll start with some right-handed starters and some left-handed starters, and we'll rank them for you. and eventually work our way through the bullpen and all of that. Kind of cool as we celebrate getting into our 56th, is it 56 now? I think it is. Season coming up in Oakland, where we know for a fact they're going to be playing in 2024, which is good.
Maybe the last one.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. Remember what I asked for Christmas, Santa, if you're watching, if you're listening. Yeah, so that's all the time we have for today. We'll get back to this day in A's tomorrow because there's some good stuff. In fact, we may have to go back and tell you what happened on the 22nd, but we're out of time. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. We totally appreciate that. Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That's your team every single day. Don't forget Locked On Sports Today, the first 24/7, 365 streaming sports network. And I'm going to send you over there here as soon as this is over. And it's over. Ian, thank you for being here, man. Appreciate it.
You got it. Anytime.
That's my eldest right there. Heck of a A's fan too, just like Pop. Mm-hmm. All right, so have a great day, and we'll get together again on the next episode. Hope to see you here, and until then, you keep on swinging.